Howdy, folks! Welcome to the one and only original country band musical Jamboree, featuring a wild and woolly assortment of grizzled old grizzlies singing a little country, a little western, and a whole lot of everything in between. So get those paws tapping and those claws clapping for five bears who need no introduction, but I'll give them one anyway. Let's hear it for the Five Bear Rocks! Hit it, boys! It's our country band musical Jamboree. Don't you even wanna come again? They still sound pretty good.
You see her sitting there across the way. But you're dying to try. You wanna kiss the girl.
A furry firestorm of fiddling Floridian fury. Take it away, Ernest.
Y'all swing by and see me sometime.
I would, but I'm scared of heights.
Everyone's been a fixer-upper. That's what it's all about.
Now, how about we do one of my favorites? You've got a friend in need.
You got a friend in me.
Hiya, Sammy. You've got problems.
I got them too. And why don't we invite all our friends out there to join us for the finale?
Great idea, Sammy.
Bare necessities, that's why I'm married rhapsodies with just the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, the bare necessities of life will come to you.
As you can see, we're still barely keeping it together. What do you say, Sammy?
I say, y'all come back, you hear?
We've had such fun, we're gonna cry. We just get there to say goodbye. We hope that you'll be coming back again.
Don't forget to gather your belongings.
And your kids, too.
It's been good to have you.
So long, folks.
Sorry, wrong opera house. I've always wanted to do that. My name is Kevin Kern. I am the Regional Archives Manager for the Walt Disney Archives. It is an honor to be here today to help introduce this show. Who here loves the one, the only, the original Country Bear Musical Jamboree? Let's we have a heck of a show here for all of you tonight. And in fact, I'm going to turn it over to two of my friends. I've got my pal Stephen Vagnini from the Walt Disney Archives. And the one and only Imagineer, Mr. Ken Ritchie, to tell you a little bit more about this show. Boys, take it away.
Well, howdy, folks. Howdy. I always wanted to do that. How's everyone this evening? Great. All right. Well, welcome to Grizzly Hall with the one and only original Country Bear musical Jamboree. Well, thank you so much. Who here is a fan of the Country Bears? By a show of hands. All right. How about a show of clapping and stomping? This is wonderful. Well, thank you so much. As Kevin mentioned, I'm Stephen from the Walt Disney Archives, and Ken Ritchie from Walt Disney Imagineering. Ken was actually my leader when I was at WDI for about 5 years or so. So I am so thrilled for you to hear from Ken directly as the producer of the spectacular show that you're all about to see. So thank you so much for being here. And Ken, why don't we start off a little bit by sharing your background with Disney and what brought you to be producer of this great show?
I have been a Disney fan my entire life. I grew up in the 70s and 80s watching the wonderful world of Disney movies. I knew when I was in high school and I saw Mickey Mouse standing on Spaceship Earth that I had to be an Imagineer. And I didn't give up until I made that dream a reality. And 2002 when I started working as a mechanical engineer for Walt Disney World, and then transitioned to Imagineering in 2013 as the manager of technical show quality for the Walt Disney World Resort under Imagineering. One of my roles as that manager of technical show quality is to lead the refurbishment of our audio animatronics across property. And I've done a number of projects with that, and the Bears, I had been pushing for the Bears to be refurbished before COVID, and then we heard this project was coming, and so wanted to align that refurbishment with the project. And then I went to the leader because I'm very passionate about the Bears and a huge fan of Mark Davis and Exitensio, and I was like, can I please produce this show? So, and that's how I ended up as the show producer.
You're in the right place at the right time. All right, with the right cast of Bears here. All right, well, so one thing that we'd like to do is share a little bit of the history and heritage of the Country Bears themselves, and then really dig in and talk about the nitty-gritty about the show. So if you'll indulge me for just a moment, I want to share a little bit about background that goes back to Walt Disney himself. Now, some of you may be aware that the Country Bears weren't originally intended to be part of the Magic Kingdom. In fact, they were initially conceived for another Disney project. Does anyone here know what that project might have been?
Ski resort.
Mineral King Ski Resort. Yeah, Disney was in the mid-late 1960s looking at potentially creating a ski resort in the Mineral King Valley in California. For a variety of reasons, it never actually materialized. But this, year-round resort with skiing and fishing and just, enjoying the great outdoors, if you will. Walt envisioned a maybe 30 to 50 acre alpine-style village, and then there would have been entertainment, lodging, some entertainment, and with that, Walt had an idea for a bear band. These bears that came out of the woods that Disney taught to be entertainers. And from that spark of idea that Walt had, he brought it to one of his top Imagineers, Mark Davis, who you just mentioned. Mark had a long history with animation prior to joining the Imagineering team. If you know characters like Cruella de Vil, Maleficent, Tinkerbell, these are ones that Mark really brought to life through his animation style. And what a perfect skill to bring to 3D, right? From the subtlety to the extravagant theatrical performances, Mark really had the breath to create convincing personality animation. So Walt said, why don't you go ahead and work on this bear band concept? Fast forward to maybe November of 1966, and Walt Disney makes a very special visit to Walt Disney Imagineering, then known as WED Enterprises, if you weren't aware of that. And Walt had been in and out of the hospital at the time, and he was very eager to see the status of many of these projects at the studio and at WED. Mark shows him these bear sketches as part of that visit, and Walt's looking at this small bear with a big tuba and all these other amazing little sketches of instruments of all kinds and bears of all kinds, and we'll talk about that bear with the tuba later. And Walt let out the biggest laugh that Mark had heard in quite a while. And about 4 weeks later, we lost Walt Disney. So we go back to that time and we really consider that moment to be Walt's last laugh, as it's known, is the idea for what would become the Country Bear Jamboree. So how great that show continues to live on. It was decided that Magic Kingdom here at Walt Disney World would be the best place for it, because as we mentioned, Mineral Kingdom did not move forward. And we were then looking at what can we do to bring some new attractions to this new park that we're working on for Florida, and what better place than Frontierland for these singing bears. And originally, it wasn't going to be a show inside Grizzly Hall here. It was actually going to be what was then known as the Bear Band Restaurant, an outdoor venue in which these waterfalls would act as curtains, and the curtains of water would open, you'd see a bear perform, they would close, that stage would rotate for the next act. For a variety of reasons, they brought that concept indoors. You gotta wonder why.
Bear conditioning.
You're previewing the show that we're about to see, I think, with those bear puns.
Over a year, bear puns.
So anyway, the Grizzly Hall concept then just realized with this beautiful Dorothea Redmond-inspired interior that we see here, we are an opening day attraction, October 1st, 1971, one of only 3 attractions in the park that was totally unique to the Magic Kingdom when we opened, the rest having sort of iterations that premiered at Disneyland. Does anyone know the other 2 attractions that were original to the park completely? Mickey Mouse Revue, for those who know that. Is that John? Hey John, how are you? Biggest Mickey Mouse Revue fan in the world. I knew it was you from the attraction. All the presidents is the other, absolutely. So Country Bear being another.
But does he know the 3 calves in Mexico? My team took those from Tokyo and put them back in Mexico. They were from the original Mickey Mouse Revue.
He's a cast member, so yeah, he's very knowledgeable. Any trivia, John? You want to come up here and share some trivia? You're a paying guest. So with that, very excited. 50 years later, the Country Bears, 50 plus years later, they're still here and singing brand new songs. And Ken, you mentioned how much you love the show, how much you want to be part of this. What do you think is so special about the Country Bears that lets them endure and entertain so many years later?
For me, it's the Country Bears being a classic, having Mark Davis and Exitencio involved. It felt, to me, it's always felt like an immersive cartoon. Like I was living out Saturday morning cartoons with the hokiness and the banter and the laughs. And that's what resonated most with me with the show.
Kind of the three-dimensional version of that entertainment, right? And it goes right back to the whole idea of the illusion of life. And Walt said with audio animatronics figures, it's just another way that we tell stories through animation. It's just three-dimensional animation. But Ken, when you work on a show like Country Bears, it has such a huge fan base. Yes? I'm sure there's absolutely no pressure at all on you to do it right?
I felt Louisa. There was a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Immense pressure.
Tell us about it. What approach do you take?
So we definitely wanted to stay true to the original creative intent that Mark had, and we wanted to stay true to the story arc, and we wanted a connection to the prior show, but we needed to resonate with a much larger audience. If the Bears are to continue on for 50 years, and I hope they do, we needed to fill this theater. And how do we do that? We want to resonate with our older generation, but we want to connect with the newer generation, and that was the goal, threading a needle with some new original songs, some authentic country songs, but with lyrics that connect to everyone, that remind them of their childhood with Disney growing up, that they in turn can bring in their children and connect with them, and then closing with an original song remastered. That was our goal.
That's wonderful. Well, so with that, obviously so much love going into all the disciplines that have a role in this, right? You're talking, Kim, is that a Disney song that I'm hearing? So much work in terms of, obviously, animation for audio animatronics figures, in terms of audio, in terms of costume. There's so much new here. And yet your role was to make sure everyone was working in unison to deliver this on time, that the Bears were ready for their new act. So if you wouldn't mind, take us through what some of those kind of starring disciplines were and what they brought to the table.
Well, it starts with a great show writer, and we had John Kazlauskas on us, who came from Hollywood and used to write for shows and movies, and he's now an Imagineer, and he's put a lot of dad jokes in here. It's still the classic Bears and that hokiness, and then creative director Max Frederick came up with the original concepts, and then my job as a producer is to make that reality. So how do we do that? We bring in the best. Let's bring in Kevin Kidney and Jody Daly to do our concept design for our costumes, right? They're passionate about Disney. They've been involved with Disney, and they're great artists. And let's take those concepts and hand them over to Walt Disney World Costuming, but let's deliver those concepts as close as we can. And we spent weeks looking at materials and samples and colors, and these are some of the best audio animatronic costumes you'll see. I have so many favorites. Romeo, for sure. His shirt is inspired by Romeo today. And Henry's coat. I wish I had Henry's coat because it's just amazing. And so Henry's coat did start off as blue, and it changed to cream just because it didn't work quite well with the curtains behind him. But Kevin and Jody kind of went back and revised their art for us.
And does anyone here know Kevin Kinney and Jody Daly, know of their work? Yeah, that's wonderful. They are, if you don't know of them, you know their work. They have been amazing designers for Disney since, decades. I think Kevin worked on the original Fantasmic for Disneyland.
Yeah, the original Dragon.
The original Dragon, yeah. Many of the parades and shows, both here in the U.S. and in Tokyo Disney Resort, they're two of the biggest Country Bear fans I have.
And they have a merchandise line on Main Street, and they do a lot of work for Paris merchandise as well. So some other things we did, as I mentioned before, one of my main responsibilities as manager of technical show quality is refurbish audio animatronics. The Bears were completely stripped down and rebuilt. All new hoses, bushings, bearings. Bearings. Bear with us. New fur, new skin. So they've been completely refurbished. They're still hydraulic, but their control system was also updated to a modern control system. And what that does for them, through compliance, is allows them to be more fluid. So they're what's considered A1 audio animatronics. Now they're more of an A1, A100 audio animatronic hybrid. And if you don't know, the first A100 was the Wicked Witch in Great Movie Ride. She was the first one to have compliance. What compliance does is a typical A1 will just move their arm robotic. The compliance allows them to move more like a human through sensors. So if I move my arm, you see my torso moves. That's what the figures do now. So they're much more fluid and dynamic, and we can get a lot more range of motion out of them and a lot more life, you know. And so that was amazing. All new show lighting, new carpet. The benches have been touched up. The entire venue has been painted. By the way, that's not paint. That's all gold leaf on the proscenium, and that was all redone during the downtime. We had over 100 people working in here, practically tripping over each other, but with scaffolding. The curtains are all new. I tell you, just even curtains are a challenge because they have to be flame retardant. And if you were at Bears before, the audio didn't sound great. Part of the reason why was that heavy velour curtain muffles the audio. So how do we fix that? So you'll notice the scallops are a little higher, but there's a secondary curtain valance in front of the speaker now that's acoustic rated that allows the audio to pass. And so that was a challenge. How do we find, the right curtains? So there was a lot of work into detail. No stone was left unturned in this venue. Their eyes used to be stickers for people's. They're now new technology, and you can see that they glisten and add so much life to the figure just through the eyes and that warmth. The other thing we did is, I know there's people that love the clicking, but you didn't see it. You didn't see it today because the show is paused, but from the moment you walk in the door now, the heads greet you. They start cracking jokes. They tell you to move in. I think Melvin says, put your bare butt in the seat, and Max is like, no. So the reason why we had to get rid of the clicking, and we did that through electric motors on their eyes and their eye blinks, is because without music, it's really too loud for you to hear their dialogue over the clicking. They also sing a lot more and engage a lot more in the show, and you'll see that later on.
Going back to the animation of these figures, I think they look fantastic. They have wonderful performances that everyone's going to get to see. And with that, I want to quickly touch on one of the great Imagineers who I consider truly legendary, who was one of the lead animators on this. And his name is Doug Griffith. And Ken, you were mentioning how he started back in the Epcot era. He animated some of my favorite attractions, Journey to Imagination, American Adventure, Horizons, Kitchen Cabaret. He even did the 1992 version of the original show when it came back. And so the version of Country Bears I grew up with was Doug's work in many ways. Tell us about Doug and what he brought to us.
Doug's just phenomenal. He animated the Lasso, an American Adventure. That's all Doug. He animated the fighting pirates in Disneyland Paris' Pirates of the Caribbean. And the Wicked Witch. In the Great Movie Ride, that was originally his animation. He's been around for 30 plus years, and he's phenomenal. He came from the animation studio, so what better person to understand animating figures than a 2D animator, and he's a wizard on the old console. And I knew I had to have him on this project. I worked with Doug on updating the auction scene. I've worked with him on Hall of Presidents for 2 updates. I'm like, I want Doug. If this show is going to be the best, then I want Doug. And you'll see, just especially Ernest, the dude, you'll just see all these nuances in his eyes and his ears that just add so much character. Again, bringing that cartoon to life in the real world, and he's just phenomenal. And coincidentally, this is his last show, and he's going out on a great note because he is retiring at the end of this month. And for me, it's a loss because I really look up to Doug and appreciate how he animates figures.
We're all going to see a really good performance thanks to Doug and all these teams, Ken, that you mentioned. Amazing disciplines at work here. Now let's talk about music for a little bit, because that's such a huge part of this, right?
Yeah, so again, I said earlier, we wanted lyrics that resonate with multiple generations and connect, but we really wanted to stay authentic country bears, right? So how do you do that? Well, you bring in the best. 10-time CMA Musician of the Year, Matt McAnally, who is phenomenal, huge country bear fan himself, to recompose the music, the bass music, in various country genres. And I tell you, I love some of these songs better than the originals. So, and I've been listening to them in the car, which Disney nerd. Don't tell them that. And one of the other things, and then you bring in talent to sing those songs. Like Emily and Roberts for Trixie. When we were looking at Trixie, we were like, she needs to be twangy, have that southern draw. And so, my favorite quote from Emily that she said is, she's like, I'm as country as cornbread. I'm like, she's Trixie. And then, Chris Thiele, who's a world-renowned mandolin player, was perfect for Wendell, and Allison Russell, Grammy Award-winning Canadian folk artist, was perfect for Teddy. So Mac does Shaker as well. Let's talk about the song choices too. The songs weren't chosen at random. They're all picked for a reason because they work with the character. And so Trixie, for 50 years, she's been a failure. Now she's finally found what she's good at 50 years later. So Try Everything is her redemption song, So for Teddy Bear, it was very clear from way up there that whole new world worked for Teddy Bear, right? And Wendell, the mandolin kind of fit with that. Sammy and Henry have been pals going back 50 years. So what better song than You've Got a Friend in Me? Because that's true. That's what brings with them. And Big Al, he needs something slow and dry out and do that. And so that, remember, we worked for Big Al and for
It's not a spare bell torch.
and when I think of we wanted to put again multi-generational. When we're looking at Frozen, I was like, we really don't want Elsa. We don't want Teddy and Elsa dressing Let It Go. We want to stay authentic country. So when you think of Kristoff and Sven and that goofiness and that wackiness, that's the Country Bears, and that's why we picked for Shaker. That's why we picked Fixer Upper. I'm sorry, and have the heads, the deer, sing along with Shaker like that. It's like Sven and Kristoff, and it's just it's great. Yeah. So every song was picked for a reason, and they were picked to go across multi-generations from the 70s through the 2000s. So the other thing you'll notice is, and this goes back to Mark Davis. He said when you're doing songs for the Bears, you want them to be short and quick. You do not want the guest to focus on the Bears for long, because the longer you focus on the bear, the longer that illusion of life fades away, because they are just animatronics. So that's why some of the songs seem short, but that again goes back to Mark Davis. Keep it quick, get those jokes out, and then move on to the next act.
Yeah. Well, with that, as you're talking about these song choices and the musical artists, from Nashville, from across the country, I was thinking back to really the original development of the first Country Bear Jamboree, because there's so many parallels. George Bruns, Disney legend, musical director of the show, did Sleeping Beauty and the Enchanted Tiki Room, and obviously the original Country Bear Jamboree. But not just the Disney studio talent, but they went to Nashville. They engaged a group called the Stonemans. Does anyone hear about the Stoneman family? You love them? They were a multi-generational family, the longest playing country family in Nashville. And they actually did many of the recordings over there in Tennessee. They had many of the Stoneman family members voice some of the Bears. And so the fact that you went out there, you carefully selected these amazing singers, you went to those recording sessions yourself and got to really bring that culture to life. And many decades later, fresh, but also harkens back to the DNA of the original show. So with that, I was talking with you backstage, Ken, before the first show, and I told you a piece of information that I think you got pretty excited about when you heard it. As archivists, we're always thrilled to find a piece of information that we had never seen before, that we never heard before. And that was certainly the case when we worked with our friends at the Disney Music Legacy Library, who maintain the musical history in many respects of our films, our TV shows, our park attractions, and we did research on the Country Bear Jamboree. So they pulled out the Country Bear Jamboree file, and I don't know, is Kevin over here somewhere? Is Kevin in the audience? Oh, hey Kevin, you're over there. How's it going?
I'm just hanging around.
Oh, okay. I think I see a parallel here. So I was talking about the Disney Music Legacy Library, Gina Cadiente's group over in Burbank.
Amazing partners.
Right? And why don't you tell the audience the kind of amazing thing that you noticed about how long it took to kind of get that original song list together?
We got this amazing file, and we started looking through it, and we go, oh my gosh, how long did it take them to clear all of this music and store up all the rights and reach out to all the original performers? I think it was like, what, Steve, 14 months?
Yeah, 14 plus months.
14
actually.
plus months to get all that music for the first show ready to go.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Fascinating.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're welcome. I'll see you
Appreciate
later.
it. See you later. Big round of applause for Kevin. Good. But the thing that you found really amazing, Ken, was what we kind of gasped at really was the very first note in the Country Bear file, going back to November 11th, 1968 was the date of that note. It was from a gentleman who was head of the music department, sent a note over to the head of the audio animatronics programming team, Bob Jackman and Neil Gallagher, those were their names. Amazing, amazing Disney talents. And the memo says, here are the arrangements in snare drum, bass drum, and xylophone for Bear Band for the songs Hi-Ho and Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. So long before we actually had our final song list of these country western melodies, we were kind of dabbling in songs from our Disney films. That was a consideration that Mark and all these teams were aware of. So amazing that 50 plus years later, that initial idea, that kernel manifests itself here, which I think is really exciting. So, new to me, new to all of us. So, now, Ken, we talked a little bit about the theater and everything that went into here, but let's talk a little bit about the lobby because there's some great displays. Can you tell us the significance of the different displays, what you have in them?
Well, we wanted to start with we wanted to bring the show and the story out to the lobby, so we took a little page from the Tokyo Country Bear Jamboree and had prop cases, and each case has a different theme. Their travels around the world, their early years, their awards, and their the making of the current show. Some of my favorites are the Gal's vest. If you look from far away, it looks like he toured the world, but when you get up close, it's Paris, Texas, and he never left the States. He's on his 11th farewell tour, probably soon to be number 12. But one of my favorites is, we went through Mark Davis' art through the archives and looked at a lot of his original work. There's more of his work hanging in the lobby now, and you can see some of his jazz band renditions of the Bears. There's an original of Oscar with his teddy bear, and that's what we used for his fur styling this time around. But my favorite is the Growly Award in the awards case. And that was based on a Mark Davis art of a bear with a tuba around him. And I'm like, we have to make this into an award. And it's absolutely my favorite. And I keep hinting at merchandise that I would buy one if they would make it. I haven't seen it yet.
And that is one of the sketches we believe that Mark showed Walt on that day he visited, so that's very special. There's also a medal in there that has a bear with a honeycomb. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so in Walt's office, which is still out there in California for people to tour if they're out there, he's got several coins from the Berlin or Berlin Film Festival, and we wanted to make our own music award for the Bears to tie back to those awards in Walt's office. So that's where that coin comes from.
Another Walt Disney connection. So yeah, that's wonderful. So with that, as we sort of prepare ourselves in just a couple moments to enjoy the brand new Country Bear Musical Jamboree, a couple kind of rapid questions, kind of fire round. Any favorite Easter eggs you want to share with the audience?
Well, we do mention Mineral Springs. You'll definitely find in each scene and some connection back to the original DNA of the original show. We wanted to keep that. Lots of dad jokes galore. My favorite, because I live it every day, is during the fiddle scene with Ernest smoking, Melvin and Max make some jokes.
He's not smoking. He's
fiddle smoking. Yeah. Melvin and Max make some jokes about he's on fire today. Yeah, he's really smoking. And Buff chimes in with, yeah, he's really burning through our fiddle budget. And he's like, I can't believe we have a fiddle budget. I'm like, I feel like that's my job.
Okay, I have a question I didn't plan to ask you, but I know out of Imagineering, you cannot confirm or deny the existence of hidden Mickeys. However, if we were to see a hidden Mickey, is that something that, in theory, one could see?
I can neither confirm nor deny that, but I would definitely check back after Wednesday if you wanted to start looking.
And after the official opening of the show, we might find one. You're giving them reason to come back?
But I didn't say that.
Okay. Off the record, just for D23 members. So, and then finally, so many great characters, so many great moments. Who is your favorite country bear?
Henry. Once again, I want that coat. But Henry and I relate. This show's kind of like a mess, chaos, but it's hokey and it's funny, and I feel like that's what my world was for the past year, working on a project with over 100 people in here and scaffolding and tripping over each other and just having fun putting the show together. So I can relate to Henry.
That's wonderful. Well, no better person to lead it. Thank you, Ken. Big round of applause for Ken Richardson. Any final words, Ken, before we start the show?
Instead of talking about it, let them see the show.
All right, sounds great. Enjoy the show and have a wonderful evening afterwards. Take care.